Well, happy Sunday to you, CBC youth, and especially middle school youth. Hope you're doing well. I continue to miss you and think of you often. And this week, I'm really glad to have had a chance to see many of you through Zoom. I don't even know how many. We had quite a few folks on our Zoom meeting, and even though I got kicked out early because of technical difficulties and probably a good bit of user error, it was really nice to spend some time with you, and we had a great time. And I know the rest of the meeting was really, really neat. Good time to hang out and catch up. I don't know where you're at this week, but I hope that you're able to do some of the things we've talked about and make the most of the time that you have to connect with God and to use social distancing to your spiritual advantage. Because we know it's an advantage for our society, for our country, for our state, but it's also got many advantages for us in our walk with God and in our seeking after Him. So I hope you're doing those things. I hope you're loving your neighbor by distancing. And I hope that you're making the most of the time that you have. For this morning's lesson, we're talking more about persecution. And I want to point back to what I talked about last week. Refer to that when we think about persecution. We're not going to minimize the experiences of Christians who suffer a lot more than we do in our own context. Both Christians of the past and Christians in other part of the world today. But we're still talking about persecution for this morning's lesson. And I'm reading out of 1 Peter for it. And Peter's writing to a church that has endured a lot of persecution and suffering. Really, suffering is kind of the theme of 1 Peter to me. How to suffer, what it means to suffer as a Christian. And he has some views about it that are really surprising. So we're going to tie in suffering with persecution as we read just a little passage from 1 Peter. I encourage you to read the rest of it on your own. It's only 5 chapters. Y'all could do that in 30 minutes or less. Some of you in 10 minutes. That I would recommend not going that fast. Anyhow, let me shut up and read. Alright, this is from chapter 4, verse 12, okay? He says, "Beloved," you're beloved during this time. He starts with that. Remember, that's our identity, is beloved. Not just by Peter, but by God. Not just by me, but by the Father, right? "Do not be surprised at the fiery trial when it comes upon you to test you, as though something strange were happening to you. Instead, rejoice insofar as you share Christ's sufferings, that you may also rejoice and be glad when His glory is revealed." Share Christ's suffering. If you're insulted for the name of Christ, if someone picks on you, makes fun of you, is mean to you because of your faith, then you're blessed, because the Spirit of glory and of God rests upon you. If people can tell that you're a Christian by the way you live and what you say, if it's obvious, you're doing it right. The Spirit of God is resting upon you. But don't suffer as a murderer or thief or an evildoer or a meddler. Don't suffer for things like, if we mess up, if we do something wrong and suffer, we've kind of brought that on ourselves. Don't suffer in that way. That's not the suffering that we're called to. But if anyone suffers as a Christian, let them not be ashamed, but instead glorify God. Suffering as a Christian. That obviously, I think, means we suffer because we identify with Christ, because we relate with Christ. But I also think it's helpful if we talk about suffering as a Christian as suffering like Christ suffered and suffers still. right? As these dogs are battling each other back there. Sorry, I hope you can't hear that too loud. There's a little dog fight happening. To suffer like Christ, I see suffering like Christ in a lot of ways to mean we suffer for other people. We care about other people, and it's out of our compassion for them that we suffer ourselves. We're going to have our own suffering. They're trying to stop the dog battle. We're going to have our own suffering, but if we're doing it like Jesus, if we're living our life like Jesus, then a lot of our focus is going to be on the needs of people around us. And we're going to be moved to try to meet those needs. So I want you to think about, again, going back to the very first Sunday when we talked a little about solitude and coming out of solitude to return to the public sphere. God wants to use this time to make you more like Jesus than you've ever been. And when you return to your world, your life, and live like Christ, there will be pushback because of that from other people and from other sources too, perhaps. And so when you're stepping out, I want you to know that there's some suffering that's going to come with it. But our calling is to look like Jesus even through that. Right? Jesus doesn't just show us what it means to win all the time or have everything going perfect all the time. Much more often, Jesus himself experienced and experiences pain, sorrow, heartache, abuse, all sorts of forms of evil. But through that, his glory is revealed. And through that, for ourselves, his glory will be revealed in us. Okay? Alright, just a simple little, really easy 9-minute, quick lesson. Yeah, simple stuff. This is a moment when I hate not being able to engage with you about the lessons. I hate not being able to ask you questions and hear your questions. So what I really, really want you to do, this is always the case, but especially now, holler at me if you have questions. But also, this is a great chance for you to be talking with your parents or grandparents or whoever's a part of your life of faith. Get with them and ask them questions and discuss what we're talking about. And they can help you understand and apply it. But the other thing I would love for you to do is read 1 Peter, and especially 1 Peter chapter 4, and use those shuns, right? Imagination, investigation, application, and dig into the Word for yourself. I think that's really one of the main redemptive things that I can see out of this time is you've got to have faith for yourself. You've got to put in the work for yourself in this season. And that, again, will set you up on a trajectory for the rest of your life. I love you very much. Be good. For Wednesday, we're doing chapter 8 of 1 Corinthians. So for sure, try to get into 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and be prepared to discuss that and learn about that. And, yeah, just keep me up to date. I'm missing you guys. I love you very much. I'll see you Wednesday. And then Zoom at 7. The Zoom meeting at 7. Okay.